Hey everyone, we are live. I am Yang Yan Zhao here with the Dungeon Delver and the Dungeon Minister. Today, episode 2 of the Nerd Council of Doom. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Yank, good to be here. Good to be here. This is a lot of fun. I'm digging this.
I'm just glad there's no biblical level weather events in my area this time to knock me offline.
I was just telling Yang before you came on. It was down here. Like we had summer thunderstorms roll through, power loss, internet loss, everything. But it was a few hours ago. It's gone by now. Now it's sunny and hot because Florida.
It's Florida.
Works. Yeah, it's getting there. It's early afternoon here, and it's gonna be hot.
Mm-hmm. But anyway,
So
how?
got
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we got a bunch of topics for the day. Where do you guys want to start off?
I don't know. I kind of want to. You had mentioned this earlier. Whether or not college is worth it for geek jobs. That's kind of interesting to me because I'm no spring chicken anymore, right? And I got back into school very part-time back quite a few years ago. And I shudder to think like I still find the paperwork and get little notifications from the school and so on and et cetera. And I see when I started and I'm like, dear Lord.
Are they still asking you to donate? I keep getting alumni requests.
Yeah.
But you know what I went into, don't you?
No.
Electrical engineering, right?
Yeah.
Music theory?
There's some. I have theories about music.
Yeah, if it's made past like 1994, it's not worth a damn. That's my theory about music.
So,
but,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I worked IT for almost 30 years without even considering getting a computer science degree. It wasn't necessary. I got into IT professionally in the 90s. If you could spell HTML back in 1994, you could get a job in information systems. And I mean, I had like low-end mainframe janitorial gigs. There were people 2, 3, 4, 5 years younger than me who got filthy rich in the 90s just by dint of being able to set up early websites that became repositories and popular places to go when you could exhaust the entirety of the World Wide Web in a weekend. Long days, but still. But yeah, having a simple Associates of Arts degree, information systems is showing my age. Yes, thank you, Doomsword. Having a simple information of arts degree was enough. And I worked everywhere from hospital IT, working on mainframes, all the way up through electronic finance. I did IT for the Army and for NASA into the early 2000s. But when we hit the financial crisis of 2008, a lot of guys just like me, no major college degree, but tons of experience, were considered redundant. Because they said, well, let's see, I can hire you, or I can hire you at what you think you should be making because you've got all this experience and no degree and maybe some certifications, or I can hire somebody straight out of college for a third of what you're asking, and they're just happy to have a job. So when I looked around and saw that was where the job market was headed, I said, I gotta get to college and get a comp sci degree. And so that's something I've toyed with off and on. But I got to tell you, I honestly don't know at this point if it's worth it to get a college degree for any particular kind of geeky job, depending on what the value you want to put on that geeky job is. I mean, do you mean geeky job like makes video games, or geeky job works with computers?
Well, I mean, could be that, but even expanding it, different art degrees or a music degree. These are sort of non-traditional things. I taught design at various universities for about 10 years earlier in my career. And I would never recommend anyone to go to college for art these days. And so, just a little background. What brought me on this topic is I recently left my job. And I was talking to one guy who just started. So it was in the medical industry. I had switched careers, and this guy was a physical therapist. He had just started about a year before, and we had an intern, a woman who's just about to finish her degree in physical therapy, and we all got to talking about like money and how you're going to retire and this and that. And the guy, he tells me, well, I have $100,000 in student loans. And I was like, dang. And the lady's like, oh, well, when I graduate, I'm going to have 130,000. And it really got me wondering, like, how are you going to get past that hill? I hear a lot of millennials and now Gen Z, the older ones, complaining about, I can't afford a house, I can't afford this and that. And they took out degrees that were questionable at best. They weren't like, I got a medical degree or I'm an engineer or a lawyer. School is through the roof. And I'm just wondering, like, is that even worth it? So for nerd degrees specifically, if you're talking about computers, like, why not just spend the money to get whatever certs you need? Microsoft or Linux, Unix, whatever. For design, there's plenty of great online programs between like $1,500 and $5,000 that will teach you all the basics, and then you just have to practice yourself. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, there's got to be a risk to reward balance with the whole college system. It used to be if you went to college, you were guaranteed a good job and it was going to be higher paid than the average person. But, I don't see that these days. And let me just see here. Oh, wrong layout. So I just did a quick number crunch here. So with that lady's loan, let's assuming it's all one loan, $130,000. The unsecured loan rate for students right now is 5.8%. 10-year loan. That means she is going to be paying $1,400 a month. Now, if you graduate and let's say you make $48,000 a year as a beginning position, right? That's basically $4,000 a month. You're going to lose a quarter of that to taxes, which means you got about $3,000 left to play with. And right there, $1,400, you're losing almost half of your income. So on $1,500, $1,600, you have to pay rent, pay food, probably going to need a car to get somewhere. You're going to have to pay insurance on that car. You'd probably like to have a phone. It's crazy.
Well, and this is what gets people, banging on about student loan forgiveness and all this other stuff, which, is fraught with its own issues of why everyone else is paying for someone's education. But you can at least understand, you can appreciate the desperation behind that movement, because people who have already gone through that mill are stuck. And anyone looking at it, I mean, honestly, I've got 3 boys. They're, the oldest one is 12, and I'm really encouraging them to the trades. plumbers and carpenters, and the jobs that A, can't be outsourced, they can't be sent someplace else, but also that you're going to have a reasonable entry level expenditure. You're going to have to get certification and training, what you're talking about. And part of it, I mean, like back in the day, if you didn't have a degree, you weren't even looked at. It wasn't, you were going to be considered for a lot of jobs. And it became essentially like the equivalent of high school used to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you'd been to university, it was like, well, you're basically educatable. You can learn. But now with people freelancing and building their own businesses and their own career paths and things like that outside of a corporate structure, I don't know how necessary it is. I'm just glad I don't have to find out, frankly.
That's true. And you're right. People will never stop clogging their toilets.
Yeah.
No.
There's always going to be someone
Always money
with a big turd. Look at me. Come out right.
Yeah, no, I personally, I think Mike Rowe's got the right of it. Like, dirty jobs, Mike Rowe.
Mm-hmm.
His thing is go to trade school.
Yeah.
People ask, what should I do after high school, Mike? Go to trade school.
There's a book, Durable Trades, that if you've got kids who are approaching career choices, it would be worth checking out. It's a Rory Groves, I think Graves or Groves, wrote it, and he goes through professions that exist today that have existed for hundreds of years, things that always have been, right? IT specialist isn't on that list, but farmer sure as heck is, right? Shepherd, carpenter, plumber, jobs that people have always needed, always are going to need some version of this job done. And he also gives a focus to jobs that can be done as a family, like not like, come on kids, let's all go wire the building, but jobs where the family can have a role in it and it can be handed down, father to son kind of thing. It's a neat book. It's worth a read. And he looks at the world in a really different way than the sort of fast advancement, fast cash sort of culture. It looks at something that's more durable, hence the title. And it's a good read. Anyway.
So Doom Sword says, big problem in IT, the upper level guys and the C-level decision makers resent their decision to have gotten a degree and wish to ensure that no one without one ever advances. See, I kind of disagree. I think once you get to the C-level, it's more about ego, and they don't regret that degree at all. They think it makes them better than you. So that's number one. I think the problem is more in HR, which I am convinced is a tool of Satan. And the problem with HR is that they don't know what your job is. Like I used to do, well, like Bill was saying, I used to do hand coding HTML and PHP back in the 90s. And I would occasionally interview for jobs, and you would see things like, I remember when the language Ruby came out, it's like, you need 10 years experience with Ruby. It's like, well, that just came out last year. How would I have 10 years experience? So you get HR, and they're like, well, a degree means they're good. And it's just this arbitrary standard put in by people who don't know what's what. I bet if you actually went to the whatever like group manager in IT who needs the person, they would be like, no, I want that guy who has 5 years experience doing, whatever. I bet they don't really care if there's a degree or not, as long as the person can get the job done.
Right.
Yeah.
The HR person, they need something to measure, because they've got 5,000 resumes. They need to figure out, there needs to be some sifting process. And so they just pick one, and degree will be one of the sorting levels.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about keywords. Like, especially since everything's digital these days, like you just have to randomly throw the keyword in there somewhere on your resume.
Mm-hmm. Now,
to a high degree.
Yeah. It's like refining your searches. Like in Google, like if you're like, I need a new refrigerator, you don't just type new refrigerator into Google, right?
Yeah.
You're like, you enclose it in quotes, you do Boolean adders and subtractors and so on and etc. to filter stuff down to where you want it. And you got to kind of do the same thing with a resume. And if you're talking about purely nerdy job, I mean, like, I write RPG stuff. It doesn't pay well, but I do it. No, you absolutely don't need a job for that at all. A degree for that job at all, rather. Gary didn't ask me for a lit degree when I said, I want to work on D&D stuff with you, Gary. It wasn't, like, oh, okay, well, how many years in literature do you have, Bill? That was not the first thing that rolled off of Gary's tongue. It was, hey, you like D&D, right? Yeah, well, here's some of what I've written. Well, that's awesome. Down in this end of the pool, no, you absolutely don't need a degree because it's barely above hobby, which is as it should be, but we can talk about that later. But I mean, when you're talking about, making your own mobile games, writing your own home RPG stuff, recording music, I mean, the tools to create and the barrier to entry is so low now that honestly, a degree just gets in the way. I think it can honestly damage your vision for what you want to create. You go to bed one morning and then 4 years later wake up and you're just fit to go work at EA Sports, which is actually here in the Central Florida area. And then you enter a living nightmare. So I say absolutely not for true nerd or geek with a capital N or G types of jobs, making a career out of doing fun stuff. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I don't subscribe to the quickest way to kill any love of a thing is to make it a job. I don't agree with that at all. But yeah, if you want to concentrate on doing nerdy stuff, no, you absolutely don't need a degree.
Oh, you were mentioning the arts earlier, and I was an actor before I was a priest, and I got a theater degree from a state school. God bless them. I mean, they tried, but how do you even teach that? And there, some vocal techniques and that kind of stuff, but really, how do you even teach that? It's not something that communicates well. So I faffed around for 4 years and got a piece of paper that said I'd faffed around for 4 years. And then I went out and I did the same thing that I would have done 4 years earlier when I, had probably more money and more optimism. I think for a lot of those things it is. And the digital age has ushered in a complete, you can do the same job in your one room flat as you can in a corporate office, right? As long as you have enough hardware that can process, you can do the same stuff anywhere. And if you head off to university, unless you're at a university that's really tapped in and has a quick turnaround for its curriculum, you come out with knowing something that's 4 years, 5 years out of date, right? So they set up the course. This is what we're going to learn. So it's what you learn. But by the time you get out in the tech world, great, I'm an expert in MySpace. Anyone?
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm fully pursuant in the Redbook audio standards for multimedia CD-ROMs.
I'll program your laser.
Nice for you. I mean, somewhere around here, I have a 3-ring binder with a plastic sleeves you can put documents in, and it is full of little certifications I have gotten from 1995-ish until kind of recently with the last couple I got from my school. Ask me how many I'm ever going to mention on a resume if I decide to dive back headlong into the job hunt.
Exactly. And, the other thing I just want to mention, in case any young people happen on the stream with 3 old guys, is that, you got to keep in
Maybe
mind,
you too.
if you go into a degree and the payoff is not so great, like if you get a medical degree, you'll be $300,000-$400,000 in the hole, but you could easily be earning $300,000 to $400,000 a year. That kind of makes it worth it. But
I would like the doctor to have gone to school. I don't want someone who's just an enthusiast.
Yeah.
I've looked at a lot of bodies before.
Medical and law. You guys can keep getting degrees.
Yeah, because the human body hasn't changed for a few million years now. We're pretty set.
But if you're getting some other degree, just keep in mind, how long will this take you to pay off? And in your life, how far will that put you behind? Because you will always have to have a job. If we're in a volatile market and people start getting laid off and you got huge loan payments, you could be screwed. It might get deferred, but it might be accruing interest too. So if on the other hand, you can get your foot in the door, even if it's a very low level, and you don't have 6 figures of debt, you're very flexible. Anytime you want, you can, give the company the finger and just go hop over somewhere else, take a month off, do whatever you want. So keep in mind that this kind of debt really does sort of enslave you into, I must fit into this mold of, I got to have a 9 to 5, can't take more than my 2 weeks off. If you say, I got to go help this family member or that family member, you might not be able to financially. So something that, unfortunately, I think financial literacy is not something that's taught very much anymore and really needs to be brought back.
No, it really does. And I mean, even my daughters tease me about it. They share memes with me and stuff like that of, kid in high school. I'd really like to learn how to navigate personal finance and managing bank accounts. Teacher, yeah, but first, let's talk about the length of a hypotenuse. I really need some help with figuring out what I'm going to do with myself after high school. That's awesome. But can you tell me who the king of Zaire is? And it's like, I mean, my daughter, when my oldest daughter was born, my hope was she'll find something she loves and she'll go to college. She is very interested in visual arts. She is out of high school now. And she said, I am preparing my portfolio. And these are the online trade schools I'm going to look at. And I'm full thumbs up for that.
Nice.
So I hope she pursues that and that she doesn't tell me that she's going to take the money I set aside for college and invest it in crypto.
Oh. Ugh.
I feel a segue coming, Bill. It was just seamless.
All right. So that, it got me wondering, crypto and NFTs, right? Are these the Beanie Babies of the 2020s?
Yes, they are. You came up with these ideas, and that's not a criticism of you, by the way. You came up with these topics like 8 days ago, and since then, the crypto market has absolutely cratered. I mean, it has completely imploded.
They heard what we were talking about, and they're like, "Oh, well, if those 3 are saying it, it's over."
It was who are the two weird French brothers that had cornered the crypto market? Oh, what were their names? They're real weird looking. I gotta look this up now.
I got hung up on Siegfried and Roy, but that can't be possible. They're German, and one of them's dead, I think.
I think so.
The Bogdanov twins. The Bogdanov twins. I just, I first of all the memes that come from 4chan and other places about the Bogdanovs, they're not dead. They're just living in a private space station now. And they made a phone call middle of this week. Dump it again. To tank it. No, I mean, NFTs are money laundering. I will weather the criticism. I will weather empty legal threats because I'm allowed to voice my opinion. If you're creating NFTs, and I've seen some nightmare fuel NFTs. Don't Google Madonna NFT. Don't.
I hope it's the 1980s Madonna. Let's put it that way.
It's something far worse. You know how nightmarish the Google Deep Dream stuff it is, where you can ask Google to, try and create an image of X? It's that bad. But it's money laundering. It's money laundering.
Yeah.
You're money laundering, and it's, and to the people who are like, it's just an image, I can right click and save as, and then I have it. No. That the image has nothing to do with it. You could just have a green square and say, this is a green square NFT. They're literally just using it to launder money, to just pass a bag of cash from one Hydra head to the other and then back to say it's clean. I'm sorry if you think that it's just innocent little cartoons and it's a fun way it's money laundering. NFTs are money laundering. Have I mentioned that they're money laundering? Because they're money laundering.
Do you think they could ever be useful? Like they could ever be what they're supposed to be for? Let's put it that way.
That's what they're supposed to be for. They're for money laundering, Yang. So yes, they're very useful if you want to launder money. But yes, Doomsword got it, the Bogdanovs. But here's my feeling on crypto. Bitcoin is currently, even though it's cratered, I mean, I say it's cratered, most of it is worthless. Bitcoin is still valuable. Bitcoin is just below, we'll say for the sake of the argument, it is exactly at $20,000 per Bitcoin. What did I just say? Dungeon Minister, what did I just say about Bitcoin?
That it was at $20,000.
20,000 what?
Dollars.
Exactly. The Bitcoin bros are like, no, bro, this is the future, bro. This is where it's at, bro. It's not like fiat currency, bro.
No, the dollar is at 1/20,000th of a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
That is a drop, isn't it?
When the black pill guys' fervent wishes come true and the EMPs detonate over the east and west coast of the United States, what you going to do with your Bitcoins? Because I know what I can do. I know what I can do with a box full of silver dollars. What can you do with a Bitcoin? Except go, yep, it used to be right here. I got money in here, I promise. Because Lord Humongous, he probably doesn't have a mining farm set up to trade you for the gasoline. Okay. If I want a Bitcoin and I don't want to mine it, I have to spend money. If Bitcoins are so gosh darn valuable, why are you accepting my stupid, pointless, gonna collapse any day fiat money for it?
Yeah.
And I'll even say that about people that are like, invest in gold. Google Ron Paul, invest in gold. You have some gold? You're darn right I have some gold. Can I have some gold? Not for free. No, I don't want it for free. Here's some dollars. There you go, my friend, a piece of gold. Why did you take those? You've told me that my fiat currency is useless and that Bitcoin, or gold in the case of my example, is the way of the future or the way of the past. And yet, it's all pinned on the value of that dollar that you say isn't worth anything.
Well, the way inflation's going, no dollars or any bitcoins or anything is going to be.
No. I saw a meme the other day. It said, I called my investor and asked him what I should be buying. And he said, canned beans and 5.56 ammo.
So I think from this conversation and based on recent experience, we can all agree the best thing to invest in is toilet paper.
Yeah, but if anyone wants, I still have a Death of Superman comics book in its wrapper. No,
the one in the black poly bag they sent it out in. Yes,
I got that thing, and about a week after I got it, someone offered me like $50 for it, and I should have taken it. Speaking of toilet paper, right?
You laugh, but I am expecting my copy of X-Men '94 to be worth more than Social Security by the time I hit retirement age.
Right. If nothing else, so the people living in the shack next to you can start a fire.
I think this empty can of Pringles is probably going to be worth more than my Social Security by the time I retire.
Right. No, but there is a local used bookshop, which is unfortunate because it replaced a better local used bookshop. It's near me. And the guy is an eBay/Google guy. So if he gets a first edition AD&D book or module in, he just goes straight to eBay and looks at what the priciest one is and then puts that price on it. So if I want like another player's handbook, I've got 12 of them, to give to people to reference at a con or a gaming event. If I go up there, he wants these sell for $95 on eBay, therefore I'm going to charge $95. And he's welcome to charge whatever he wants, But if you dig through his used comic section, there are so many polybagged, hologram, foil cover, Image, and Marvel comics from the mid to late 90s that people have obviously brought in to trade. That I'm entirely
some treasure.
Yeah, exactly. They were like, I'm going to take this to that used bookstore and walk out with a couple $100. And they're like, I'll give you $6 in store credit.
Not enough. Yeah. Not even enough to buy this month's issue of Spider-Man.
Yeah, because comics are $2.99 now. Luther's got the right of it. A sword is worth 10 GP. Moldvay says so. Good enough for me.
There you are.
10 gold pieces, that's a pound. That's 1.6 ounces. 10 gold pieces is insanely valuable today.
Yeah.
Well, now you're assuming that they're not just gold plated.
Oh.
Very true. Very true. I think.
Or those chocolate candies.
In B2, there's a sack of gold coins. I think the owl bear. I could be wrong. Somebody check me on that. But the owl bear has a sack of gold coins, but they're actually lead coins with just this gold wash. So each one is only worth like a silver or something like that. But yeah, no, that's just where I stand on crypto and NFTs. That it's a joke / con.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be, the number of people who wrote it while it was on its way up and who made a good deal of money on that con.
Sure.
Yeah, like anything that's based on absolutely nothing, it's bound to fall apart. And eventually, there has to be a there, right?
Yeah. Very well put. There has to be a there, and there is no there.
Yeah. It's just hollow. So
I can see Bitcoins as a medium of exchange. For example, you're like, I'm going to buy something from a guy in Italy, and I buy the Bitcoin with my dollar, which he accepts, which then is converted into euros. That kind of makes sense to me, but even then, it seems like you're taking an extra step.
Yeah, okay. Why not just because we know the currency conversions about every currency on the planet, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem is just that its lack of a natural store value. Like gold, gold has industrial applications and it looks cool and girls like it when you give it to them. So it has some innate value. Dollars, for the moment, most people in the world will accept dollars. So, those are worth having. But Bitcoin does not seem like a fantastic long-term strategy.
Yeah, well, although, I mean, if you push this too far, everything that we say has value because we say it has value outside of food and clean drinking water. And beyond that, everything we assign value to has value because we assign it value, right? I mean,
that or because it's useful in some way.
For some metals and things like that.
Yeah.
But that's not what your girlfriend's thinking when you give her. She's not thinking, "Ooh, I could do some circuitry with this,"
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a keeper, but
that's true. Well,
it is all.
If she's retinning an old vintage PC with a wedding ring, either run as far and fast as you can, or take her into your arms and never let her go.
Probably opt for the second there.
And speaking of taking things into your arms, have you guys seen Obi-Wan? Is it Obi-Wan or Obi-Lose?
I am a very bad pop culture commentator. I should really, mea culpa. I haven't watched, like, when I watch a glowing rectangle, it's a YouTube channel. I haven't watched an actual show in forever now. I think the last series I was up to date on was Jeeves and Wooster. So that's go back.
I must admit, Yang, I had every intention of at least watching some of it to do my homework before the show. I have not, although my Facebook feed, just scrolling down through it, tells me that it is the best thing in the world, and you should be killed for watching it. It's just literally like every other post is like, the new Obi-Wan is manna from heaven, and then the next person is like, this is a disgrace to the memory of George Lucas, and I'm like, he's not dead yet. Well, he'll die of embarrassment when he sees that, and I'm just like,
well, now there's actually something in this. So there used to be, in your old view, there was an enormous Darth Vader behind you, Bill.
Yes.
Okay. I have above my desk an X-wing. I've got Darth Vader over there. Two of the three of us have not seen the show at all. That's probably as good an answer as you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean,
going to lose or fail, or lose or succeed.
I honestly didn't know how the camera angle was going to work, but you guys can't see the bookshelves all the way to the far wall over there is all Star Wars toys, all my original Star Wars toys. Darth is now standing, he's where he was, but just you can't see him from the angle anymore. I
mean, if you and I didn't bother to watch it,
yeah,
it's a pretty good indication of,
Yeah.
So Yang, you gotta tell us, how is it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna say this is what I think happened at Disney LucasArts. They were kind of shocked at the failure of Last Jedi. And they perhaps thought, maybe a film was not the right medium. Let's try it again, but in TV format.
Good Lord.
So we have
maybe
this.
If we did this dog poop in a different shape, people would eat it.
Exactly. So, we have Ewan McGregor, and I'm 5 episodes in. That's all there are so far. And I have to wonder, is he in debt? Did he get a divorce or something?
Yeah.
So he is actually, as good as could be. But it starts off with an Obi-Wan who is an old and bitter man, who is basically creeping on a boy through binoculars in a desert. He's got a day job cutting up sand whales where he steals part of the meat for his elephant horse. Yeah. It's that good. So, and then you have Bail Organa comes because his daughter Leia gets kidnapped. Now we might ask, how did Leia get kidnapped? Well, she, the princess, the daughter of, I guess Bail was the king or something. I don't know. And she keeps sneaking out into the woods near her house, where some bandits played by Flea from Red Hot, the leader played by Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, chase her around the woods for 10 minutes before they capture her. I really expected the Benny Hill music to start at any point. And then she would duck under a tree branch, and the adults would be like, "Oh, we can't get past a tree branch," and they would have to go around lose her again. But she gets kidnapped. And so Bail Organa comes, and he's like, "Obi-Wan, you got to help." And Obi-Wan's like, "No, I got to watch Luke. He's the key to the future." And Bail's like, "But Leia needs you too." And Obi-Wan's like, "Okay." So he takes off, leaving Luke in the desert, just with Uncle Owen, because we know the Force was strong with him. And it's just a crazy... I don't know. It's almost, the series is kind of sort of like how Obi-Wan got his mojo back, because he apparently forgot how to use half his Force powers.
It's not like riding a bike. You got to keep a daily practice with that stuff.
Exactly. No Force calisthenics. That was his problem.
But he didn't get any of the updates either. He was offline, so his Force wasn't updating on a regular basis.
And it seems like this whole series is really about launching another series for Reva. Now, Reva is a woman who is an Inquisitor, who are some of the Imperials who have Force powers, and they're supposed to be hunting down Jedi. Why the Empire has a bunch of Force-powered people running around seems to be a little contradictory, but they do. So... now, I kind of feel bad for the actress, because supposedly she got some real hate tweets and, mail or whatever because she's Black. And if that's the case, not cool.
No.
No.
It's one of those things, I prefer to make fun of people for their acting. But in this show, the script is so bad, I really can't judge the quality of her acting because there's nothing to work with.
Yeah. Right.
So it's now... The weird thing about this is my expectations for this series were so low. I'm kind of okay with all that. It has some moments I enjoy because I enjoy laughing at it. There's a scene where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi confront each other, and they're in some kind of a gravel pit. And you would think it's going to be a really cool lightsaber duel. No, it's mostly Obi-Wan Kenobi running behind gravel piles, ducking out behind, "Oh, I see you," and then he goes and runs off.
So that really undercuts the whole "now I am the master" in Star Wars, doesn't it? The last time they fought, he's running around hiding behind gravel piles.
Look,
Star
Wars is, this is not a great analogy, because Star Wars is a pastiche of old Westerns, the Dam Busters, and Akira Kurosawa films. Zorro, the original Zorro, Lash LaRue. It's all of that stuff packaged up into a very neat bundle and then given a coat of grungy lived-in sci-fi paint. And it's very good at what it does. But for the sake of this analogy, Star Wars is a structurally sound, beautiful, old construction home. Disney moved in, bought the property it was on, and every property around it, and is now building crap duplexes and triplexes and trying to convince us, the fans, to move out. We won't. So they're just going to tunnel underneath and start destroying the foundations. So we can't directly ruin Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi with tampering and retconning. Even the people who are on our side won't sit still for that. But if we set up all of the heroes as abject failures in every context except in the 3 movies, to where if you're trying to watch Star Wars and you've watched all of Obi-Wan, you're sitting there thinking, this guy's just an incompetent a-hole. No wonder he got cut in half by Darth Vader. He's a goob. Or if you see Luke's triumph in Return of the Jedi and his reconciliation with his father, you're going, yeah, but out of nowhere he's going to try and murder Han and Leia's son, and then become an embittered old man and have a gross gross out humor scene in in the later ones, and well, I mean, Disney controls all Star Wars, so they approve of things or don't. There was a comic that came out last year or so. It is literally the day after Han gets his medal. He flies to some distant planet, walks into a tavern that he used to frequent on it, and throws it on the bar and says, "Give me whatever that'll pay for."
Your dignity.
Yeah, exactly.
Your character.
Yeah. So nothing you could say would appall me and disgust me about how Disney is handling Star Wars anymore. So if you tell me that, yeah, in this episode Obi-Wan, Bill, he cleans toilets in the Mos Eisley cantina with his tongue for a half credit coin. I'd be like,
pubic hair and knit sweaters out of them.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be like, well, that might as well happen. So that's kind of where I am with the whole of Star Wars that isn't Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi. You know what? I will say that I actually did enjoy Rogue One. I thought Rogue One should have been the blueprint of, hey, we're going to make an expanded Star Wars universe of our own. Why it wasn't? Maybe because it was good. Kathleen Kennedy saw it and was angry, so she said, "No, I want them to be bad."
Yeah, that one, I wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was. It was definitely the number 4 on the list, but yeah, it had coherence. Mm-hmm. It had actual emotional stakes and a character arc. Yeah, and some really astonishing visuals, which is one of the things that, I mean, the prequels and the modern movies fall short on the one thing they should be able to do better, right? I was rewatching, I don't know why, to punish myself for my many sins, I guess, rewatching one of the prequels. The one starts out with a big space battle, and yeah, it was just an incoherent mess. Just stuff on screen going fast. It's just nonsense. Give me some models that someone shot. Screen and then cobbled together, and you can see the little squares around the TIE fighters, but who cares? It was awesome.
And to me, this is the big problem with all the recent both Star Wars and Marvel TV shows, is those movies often have at least something that's visually interesting to see. Even the ones that are kind of a mess, there's a lot of bright lights and stuff. But the TV show is scaled down. I don't know if you guys remember the Universal Action Pack back in the 90s, which is where we got the TV shows Hercules, The Legendary Journeys.
Oh, yeah.
So, it was supposed to be at the time like a step up in quality above the average TV show for like whatever that was, 1991 or something. 91. And that's what these feel like. It's like, well, we're better than basic cable, but we couldn't care enough to do movie level.
Well, there's YouTubers putting together better stuff than that.
Yeah,
more technically accomplished and better visual effects. But the thing is, now they do it without the sort of campy Kevin Sorbo, Lucy Lawless tongue-in-cheek that made the bad special effects charming.
Fun, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun because you knew how bad it was. I mean, it was just dreadful, but it was gloriously dreadful. It was like Plan 9 from outer space, right? And except in this case,
UPN.
The actors knew how bad it was, and they were riding that. They were going with it. But now it's also bloody earnest. It's also earnest, and we have such important things to say, but it's still so bad. Still so bad.
Yeah. It just I love, and yet at the same time I blame Babylon 5 from the 90s for so much of what we have to suffer through now in sci-fi and fantasy genre TV shows. I mean, sci-fi and fantasy shows up until B5 came out was literally just the romp of the week. Hey, we're going to this planet. Hey, we're meeting these people from another kingdom. Just what we did last week isn't important. What we do next week isn't even on our minds. We're meeting the rubber forehead tribe number 432 this week. And that's how it's going. And JMS had a vision for a story arc that he fully admits he borrowed from Tolkien for Babylon 5. And there are filler episodes that you can watch. But it is the most 90s thing in terms of special effects. But that's for another discussion. But he created a soap opera in space, a serialized soap opera in space. And to paraphrase him, when somebody asked him what he thought of DS9, because DS9, a space station sitting next to a portal with a connected story and a messianic figure, somebody asked him, like at a sci-fi con, what he thought of DS9, and he said, I think DS9 has a wonderful story. I should know. It's ours. But he he created Babylon 5, and people looked, I mean, creators looked at the success of it relative and said, hey, if that's what people dig, if that created a cult following, think what we could do if we cranked it up to 11. And I know that a lot of people don't like the Battlestar Galactica. They wanted the 1970s disco sci-fi Battlestar Galactica when it rebooted. I liked the We Are in the Shadow of 9/11 Battlestar Galactica just fine. But between that and Babylon 5, We have gotten nothing but grimdark cliffhangers. Don't fall in love with these characters. We are going to kill them off or abuse them at the very least in every series since then. Even cartoons are doing it.
Well, speaking of killing characters off, I have to turn into a pumpkin now. I've got a boy who's at the friendly local game store playing games, and I've got to go buy dinner.
Right on.
Or he's gonna get all grumpy and start playing chaotic evil.
Well, we can't have that. The diocese would find out, and then you get defrocked, and we just couldn't have that on our conscience.
No, I couldn't do YouTube videos if I wasn't wearing a frock. A whole other platform. Anyway, it's been great talking to you guys.
Thank you, Dungeon Minister. We'll see you on the next Nerd Council of Doom.
Yeah, boy.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that was unfortunate timing. That does leave us with one more topic if you want to get into it.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to tell you what, we could be here until tomorrow if we went down each and every rabbit hole. I'm gonna share a link, and I'll let you can I share my screen, or do I? Yeah, I can share. Okay. So before I do this, there's a preamble required, a rantamble, if you will. And Yang, you feel free to stop me. This is not the Delver's Dungeon live stream. This is us as a group talking about this. Well, a group of two now, but just the same. I made a comment on Facebook about this situation, and I'll get into what the situation is. But the comment, I think, says a lot about it, and it's paraphrasing Sean Bean in the film version of The Lord of the Rings, because this is not in the book, but it's a line in the movie. Dungeons and Dragons has no celebrities. Dungeons and Dragons needs no celebrities. A few years back, a woman by the name of Satine Phoenix decided to take the tabletop role-playing game hobby by storm. She kind of launched a little media empire. And if you think of it as like the launching of a ship, tabletop role-playing games is a medium-sized lake. And she wanted to put an ocean liner in it, and she did. And started many, many, many projects. And later her boyfriend and then husband, Jamison Stone, positioned themselves to be the it people of tabletop gaming. They had events, projects. They were the people that you wanted to be seen with. Multi-$100 DMing events at tables. I think they went off and played D&D. They did a cruise from the United States to Iceland. And there were a lot of prominent people in the industry who aligned themselves with them. Now, for myself, again, it goes back to what I said. Dungeons and Dragons has no celebrities. Dungeons and Dragons needs no celebrities. D&D has been a zero entry point hobby, and it is how it should be. All right. Think of it this way. Let's say you're into golf, and you have a public golf course. You pay your green fee, and you come in. Well, one day, a pro golfer, I don't know any pro golfers that are currently at the top of their game. I had Tiger Woods, but even then I think I'm dating myself. But let's say Tiger Woods shows up and he starts playing. And he starts charging X amount of money to walk along the greens with him and play with it. And people find out about this, and the media wants to come, and the media wants to pay attention. and it's harder and harder to get a tee off time. And people who are interested in golf are like, well, I'm not as good as Tiger Woods, and I don't have that kind of money, so I guess golf's not for me. And you're like, no, it'll be fun, and you go out there. That's kind of what this attitude sort of generates. D&D is for everybody. It really is for everybody. With the caveat, and I think we as gaming enthusiasts need to gatekeep our hobby just a little bit by saying, the entry fee is you have to be interested in D&D. Your primary goal is not social change, and it's not making yourself a media personality on the back of D&D. Leave that crap at the door. Come and sit and play D&D. You're Vin Diesel? Well, Vin, I have a chair between Bob and Jim.
Yep.
And that's what you're going to be, because we're not doing, let's get BuzzFeed TV and let's get Kotaku reporter hovering over you, asking you a question every 5 minutes. You're going to sit and you're going to play D&D, and that's how it's going to be. So Miss Phoenix took the former approach in her way. And again, Jamison Stone, her boyfriend, and then later her husband, they got married at Gary Con. Luke Gygax was the officiant. It was the event and furthering my feelings about this. Now, I'm not going to say, hey, she shouldn't be in tabletop gaming. I'm going to say, hey, her ego and attitudes shouldn't have been in tabletop gaming. A tattoo artist back on the 8th did an info dump explaining how he had basically been dragged backwards through hell in dealing with thank you. Yes. And I'll do a screen share also in just a second for our viewers and listeners. But he basically said, as soon as I started talking about them fulfilling their end of the contract, they started bullying me, emotionally and verbally bullying me. And this went down a number of years ago. Now, at that point, if that had been it, capital I, capital T, full stop, I would have said, sounds like some people I don't care about have had a disagreement with some people I don't know about. So what? That wasn't what happened, though. I want you to take a look at this. I'm going to share this with you real quick, Yang.
There we go.
Yeah, this is a guy put this together. It's Studley Stone, a collection of stories involving Satine Phoenix, Jamison Stone, Apotheosis Studios. This is 15, and I don't think the guy's updated because I've seen a couple other people come out of the woodwork. This is 15 separate stories of these two. And let me be 100% clear. These two bullying some people out of the hobby. Like, you read some of these, and I don't care what your feelings on 5th edition or 1st edition. I don't care what it is. When you browbeat somebody to the point where they're like, you know what? If this is how TTRPGs are, screw it. I'm gone. I'm out. I'm not going to do anything with this anymore. That's bad. That is very bad, because that person then goes and says to somebody who's like, yeah, I'm thinking of playing D&D, I'm going to get some old books. I saw it on Stranger Things, and they're like, pump the brakes. Let me tell you what the tabletop community is like. You see where that can be bad.
Yeah.
And a number of these stories are not just like, because the initial focus was on Jamison Stone, because he was kind of at the spear point of this. And people are like, oh man, classic abuser behavior. Satine must be like in the background, just like cringing inside. No, a lot of these people were like, yeah, before she ever knew Jamison, she was starting a whisper campaign. I mean, there were a couple of people that at a con that said, hey, do you want to do a podcast with our company? And they basically treated them as unpaid slave labor for 4 days. Like every morning, like you're going to be at our hotel room at 7:15 and we're going to talk about all the stuff you did wrong the previous day and what we're going to do to move forward. And it just goes on and on and on. It's like Mr. Bones' Wild Ride. The ride never stops. It's just one nightmare story after the other. And there are people alleging that this is cult-like behavior, that Satine and Jamison were like, yeah, you should move out to, we've got this big house and a guest house, and you can live here and you can work here and you can work on this thing with us. And they get there and it's like, okay, it's time to have a meeting. We're going to talk about your diet, and like how much you're spending on food and why aren't you? And they're just like, I just came here to work on a role-playing game. And, so this has really blown up. Essentially, she and Jamison are persona non grata. But the reason I bring it up is not just to point and laugh. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It is because they've really, I personally think they've damaged the tabletop gaming hobby. Look, I try and bring as many people to play classic D&D as I can. All right. And a lot of those people get into the hobby. They don't just burst forth from Zeus's forehead in full plate armor with a copy of the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. They see Stranger Things, or they go to a comic shop or a gaming shop, and they see 5e, and maybe they wander onto one of my streams, or they find me on Discord, or they see a post from me on Facebook, and they're like, yeah, so, how about that old school? I said, well, come over here and let me show you. And if this woman and this guy are driving people away from tabletop games because of their frankly awful inflictions of their own mental issues on people, then honestly, it is harming my little end of the hobby, my little private smoke-filled gaming room, with cigars and scotch and beer and so on. And I feel like I've almost got to mention this. I felt like this had to be mentioned. I mean, they did some pretty terrible stuff. There's a company that does an event called D&D in a Castle. Mm-hmm. They'll castles. I mean, there's castles in the United States. It's not like you got to go to the UK or Ireland or, well, I guess that's part of the UK or, Europe to do it, but you could. They did some. If you can swing it, or if you happen to live in that area and it's a drive for you, that's an awesome thing. This guy started it. He invited Satine in. She got in good with the management. They threw him overboard. He literally watched them sail into the distance. And I say literally, not in the internet usage of the word literally, where it's actually figuratively. Because she launched, we're going to do D&D on a cruise ship. And at that same time, he was working with another company to do a D&D on a cruise ship thing. And she went to their management and said, stop doing your thing because it's going to eat into our number of signups. Mm-hmm. Just horror. And I guess the kids today say what they're doing is gaslighting. But just coming at people with like, oh, well, you asked us to have something to do with your RPG project and it wasn't as successful as you wanted. What did you do wrong? Total Darvo, just attacking people. And it's just a terrible, terrible thing. And if you want to get a taste of how bad this was, don't put it in your mouth. You just check out this website. And again, if this was one guy, if this was two people saying, yeah, I had a crappy interaction with him too. But as soon as this guy went out and said, this happened to me, all these people came out.
Well, here's the thing. Everything you said is not wrong, but I think you're missing one key ingredient to the story.
Hit me. What is it?
So first of all, let me start off with a smidgen of defense of Satine Phoenix. So I know some people who casually know her. And apparently, through the early 2000s, she was a regular at a gaming store in Hollywood where she played D&D on game nights. And she was, for all intents and purposes, a normie at that time. But I think what happened was kind of a perfect storm. So she, through that, knew a bunch of people in Hollywood, actors and whatnot. One of them was Matt Mercer, who is the DM from Critical Role. And they were buddies. So, I think a lot of the early part of her success was after Critical Role, because when that first came on, like nobody thought that was going to be good. Nobody thought it was going to take off. But when it did, I have a feeling a lot of people, either Matt specifically or people in that world, were like, hey, you should make a show of it. You should put it online. And she was there at the right time. But all of this behavior that you hear is absolutely everyday, par for the course business behavior in Hollywood. It's down the street. I have friends who have worked in different parts of Hollywood. Nothing that I've heard here sounds weird at all when you listen to their stories. I think where it comes off really strange is for the most of the world would be like, holy crap, that's messed up. But they live in such a twisted reality that, none of this seems strange. Having somebody live in your guest house and then to work on a project and then talking to them about their diet or whatever, that happens all the time. That's nothing weird out here. If I had a friend who was a writer for Hollywood and they said that, I'd be like, oh, okay, so then what happened? It wouldn't faze me. So I think what happened is you had a bunch of these people who come from this Hollywood culture, and this is what they're used to. And they correctly identified that, hey, this could be a really interesting opportunity. The timing for D&D, sort of making a reemergence just came out. You had the PAX guys doing their Inquisitions Inc. That happened to be popular, so it proved that there was more room for this space on the internet. And so I think that's what happened. And what happens is when people are in these positions in Hollywood, they just get drunk on power. So I mentioned I work in the medical industry, or used to, and I went to this one Hollywood producer's house to help with a massage. Now this was a lady. We're not going there on this story, but the appointment was for 8:30 in the morning. I came to the door at 8:25, and she chewed me out for like 10 minutes. Who are you to come early, ringing my bell early? I'm on a business call. How could you do this? Blah, 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 blah. Like that was the last day I was there because I wasn't going to put up with that. But that is the kind of mentality that rules here. So when I now I haven't seen everything on the studleystone.com site, but in the previous article, when they're chewing out the tattoo guy, that
Chad
makes sense. And then I saw some of the writers who were writing some module, or I don't know what they were making. But there was an issue about, reimbursement, but the acceptability of the writing, and then the amount, which I guess was per word, which is getting paid per word is kind of an industry standard. And then, but it was like per edited word, which means the final word count would be less, or per what you wrote. And from what theoretically Stone put in the tweets, he's like, hey, look, this is what the contract says. Except he said it in a very a-hole-ish way, to which I think was the larger problem. Some of this is just disputes about like work, and there does seem to be late payment, which is also, again, so common here in Hollywood. Like they have no problem paying you late. It's like, you're supposed to pay when I'm finished doing my work, and they're like, okay, see you later. And you're like, so money that, see you later. So when you get people who weren't around that kind of industry before, it can, not that it's acceptable in any way, shape, or form, but it definitely seems a lot worse than what people in Hollywood are accepting of.
Right. I think you make a valid point, but at the same time, I mean, there is very much a know your audience level that you would think that at least Satine, given her entertainment background, that she could have maybe grounded herself, maybe said, these people are not, are not operating at that level. I mean, look, I don't consider myself a Dungeons and Dragons celebrity. When people come to me, when they roll in hot, and maybe I'm revealing a little bit too much about myself, but when people roll in hot on me, I, generally speaking, will wilt. Okay, it's very jarring to me. Okay. Not everybody is equipped, and I would dare say that most people aren't equipped to be told. And this is a quote. This is a quote from Chad Rowe's situation. I am going to speak for 20 minutes, and you are not going to speak. Okay. And to that, I mean, if somebody said that to me, I would say, you can put that Glengarry Glen Ross shit in a holster. Because I'm not hearing about it. I'm not having that. That would be the pushback I would give. But there's, we're not an industry over here. We're a hobby. We're a hobby. We're an industry of hobbyists. We're good old boys and girls and everything in between. We're people who come into a built-out garage or an FLGS or whatever and sit down and play D&D. Oh, you were in a movie? Cool. Not, you were in a movie. What can I do to make your day better? Do you not try and gauge the people you're working, because I'm sorry, I get it, California, right? But that is a blind spot, 40 miles wide and 50 miles tall, to see, hey, this person's kind of crumbling. Maybe I should back off of this a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't overclock the CPU quite so much because something's going to break. And again, if we were talking about one case, if we were talking about Chad Rowe's story, it would be regrettable, it would be shitty, it would be a shame. But the reality remains, this is, I mean, it's like the old saw, but this is 15 people, and this guy is putting up more entries every day, and I'm seeing stuff come in just like people like, oh, by the way, I didn't see this on Studley Stone, but here's another, like what is his name? The rapper, and another one. At some point, did you not hear the banging and see all the warning lights on the control panel and think, our airplane might be in trouble? Did nobody? Okay, so you're telling me that screaming at people for showing up a minute early to your house is per normal in California. Did nobody tell them that there's 49 other states with functional, operational human beings that don't like to get screamed at on Twitter and voice calls because they need to get paid, because they need to keep their lights on? That not everybody likes the senior drill instructor Hartman treatment, that we're not all wearing powered armor and we can weather whatever somebody puts up, that maybe that hurts a little bit. And I'm not directing that at you. Don't get me wrong. I'm not directing that at you. I would, one incident, I would be more than happy to say, I'm sorry that you, Chad Rowe, had such a bad run-in with this broad. I don't know who her husband is, and I don't really care for her. Let's just sail on. I wish her the best of luck. But she took out a mallet and has been crushing people. And then she handed it off to Jamison when her arm got tired, I guess. For years. For years this went on. And there's the proof. And if you say, well, that's just a bunch of he said, she said, you look at Chad. Chad has the tweets, dude. And a lot of these other people have screen grabs of tweets and emails. And this is, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to let you talk. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you go.
Sure. And I'll explain exactly why it is. So first of all, it's not all of California. It's specifically like Hollywood and the west side of LA, which is, getting towards the beach area. Once you get east of LA, you start getting into people with like blue collar jobs. It's not so bad at all.
I stand corrected, and thank you for correcting me on that. I should have said
that's
Hollywood.
That's an important thing to note, because this is a very small community, right? And people who want to get into Hollywood, they'll do pretty much whatever. They'll work for without pay. It's expected that, a lot of people will work for nothing. Oh, well, you're right for nothing on this one, but next time we'll catch you, and then you'll make the good money. Same thing with acting. Okay, well, you'll stand around in the hot sun 8 hours a day and you'll make like $40 and you get sandwiches for lunch, and that is how people get a start. And if you're on the other side where you're up the ladder a little bit, one, you were abused coming up. So you don't see it as a problem to abuse people who are under you. It's just part of the system. And the second thing is, it's a shame that Dungeon Minister ducked out, because you see this all throughout history. You could look at it in like the Israelites moving into the promised land. As soon as they get a little bit of power and authority, they're cool with worshiping whatever God is most convenient to them. It's the same thing in Hollywood, where once you get a little bit of power and a little bit of authority over other people, you just start abusing it. And there's nobody to check you, because in general, like, look how long this went on before somebody complained. Right. And that's because all these people like, okay, well, I'll take this abuse now and then I'll get my shot later. And this kind of stuff is let me tell you, this every day. This isn't even that bad compared to some of the stuff I've seen or heard about. But this is normal, and it only comes out once things bubble up too much. Like once you've done it too much. Like we could talk about Harvey Weinstein. How many years was that guy in Hollywood? Open secret. No one said anything. He got made fun of like twice at the Oscars, and people just laughed it off. There's a reason the Me Too movement came out of Hollywood. That stuff, they have a term, the casting couch, because of stuff that you're expected. So, not that I'm saying it's correct. And in the rest of the country, this would get you a good punch in the face. But, out here, people are willing to accept it because there's that dream. Now, the weird thing is that this happened in the D&D space because, what's the upward dream, right? Like like you were saying, there's no leader. There's no, I want to be the D&D manager. Like what? But I do agree with you. It puts a taint on the entire hobby. And it does, really put people off, especially at a time when, despite what some people think about 5e and things like Critical Role, it was really introducing a lot of new people to the hobby. So some people, they would stay with 5e, and other people would say like, oh, well, what are these older editions? Let me take a look at this, and then they would filter into it. Or they were bringing people back, people who had left 20, 30 years ago. They're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. And, you touched on something really interesting, and I've mentioned this before. You look at most forms of entertainment, and there is a hierarchy. A bunch of middle-aged men can go out and play softball at their local municipal park. Winner buys the beer or whatever. But there's also MLB. MLB is what, 140 years old now?
Yeah.
A bunch of kids can play Pop Warner, flag Pop Warner on a fall afternoon. But there's also the Colossus, the NFL. You can go to your municipal golf course, but there's also, there's also golfers. You can take your phone, or if you got a digital handheld camera, you can make little movies, but then there's Hollywood and all its ancillary stuff too. In tabletop gaming, there isn't that. Tabletop gaming was really taking off. I mean, you go back to 2014 when Wizards released the Apology Edition, and then right on the heels of that came Stranger Things. And the research, Wizards of the Coast had to jump on that. They had to do the re-releases of the AD&D books in that OD&D set, right? They had to cash in on that. And they built up a lot of goodwill. Mm-hmm. So that was ticking up, but it was basically, and I don't mean this in an insulting way because I'm part of it, a brainless organism. It's leaderless because it needs no leader. It's people getting together in places, whether it's at a convention space, a comic and game store, or just in somebody's house, or now more often than not, I would say, in an online space. And I think personally, and maybe this is very cynical of me, and if you want to call me out on this, I will accept a calling out. I think a couple of power-hungry people looked at this and said, we're going to move into that space. We're going to be the MLB. We're going to be the NFL. We're going to be the big movie studios because one isn't there. That is a fallow but fertile field. And when we're done, it's only going to grow our brand of crops. And these nerds will take a knee for whatever we say and whatever we do. And they brought the West Hollywood and Hollywood mindset in with them. as a mechanical function of how they were going to do it. But what they didn't realize is as that, God damn it, we are human beings.
Yep. That I 100% agree with you. That is exactly what happened. From people who understand how to make that happen, how to make like a major D&D studio type thing. You know, they know the mechanisms of Hollywood where there's a lot of money. They can make it in. And instead of saying, oh, you know, we don't have to be a-holes this time, they were cool with it. And you know, that's where we are and why we are here.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah. If anyone wants to read the whole sad tale, check out Studley Stone. Now, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure that I read you right. Did you say you know Phoenix, or you just know her through people?
I do not know her. I know people who have played with her. I know people who knew her like back in the day. I don't know anyone that's worked with her in a professional sense, just from a little bit from the gaming industry. That, you know, they know the shop where she played, and they had seen her, you know, playing back in the day before it was a job, you know, just having fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like there's just there should have been a hey, know your audience moment with these people. If after the first time they had a kind of, you know, a come to Jesus moment where they said, you know, these tabletop gaming rubes, they're not Hollywood. We can come in here and I mean, you know, they brought a battalion of tanks backed up by artillery, and we're just villagers sitting in mud huts.
Yep.
Like what did you think was going to happen? Did you not think the people were not going to get hurt by this? I want to believe the best out of people, but at the same time, hang on one second.
Sure. Well, you know, speaking of believing the best of people, it could very well be that they started up in you know, in the best of intentions. They might not have anticipated anything like this happening, but as they go along, they just sort of gave in to bad ideas. You know, again, like the Bible. Go back to the Old Testament. How many people, you know, started off as God's chosen representative and then totally screwed it up?
You know, I just, again, I ultimately, I think it's newsworthy, it's noteworthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, this has gotten around. This is not just like, wow, Bill, you're complaining about offset type on page 172 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. How does anybody care about this? This has created ripples. And I love this hobby enough that I don't want the people who are coming in at the 5e gate. We got people coming in at the 1e gate too. Mm-hmm. But people coming in at the 5e gate who want to come down here to the 1e side of the field, and they see that and they're like, ew, that's horrible. Let's go someplace else. You know, let's go take up Scrimshaw or Needlepoint. So ultimately, that's where I am with that, and I don't. I linked you the video there, guys. Or I linked Yang the video that he just put up. I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, that's a fake apology or that's not sincere. That's not for me to judge because she didn't directly do anything to me. Mm-hmm. But you know, we observe and report. And if anybody wants to hit me up on Discord and ask me my opinion, that's fine. you run your mouth too much these days and you start to skate into litigation territory, right?
That's true.
But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure her and Jamison Stone are toast. All right.
Yes.
I don't think they're back. And maybe if something good can come out of this, maybe it is a pool shock. Maybe nobody else will consider touching this or trying to do this again. So let me conclude, and this will be the last thing I say on it unless you have a prompt for me. Dungeons and Dragons has no celebrities. Dungeons and Dragons needs no celebrities.
Yeah, I agree. I would just say I'm more than happy to have celebrities play the game, but we don't need celebrities within the game.
Yes, that is correct. That's what I'm saying. Thank you for clarifying. So there we go. And you guys can check out that guy's concatenated website, studleystone.com. If you're just here for the tea, as my wife and kids say, if you just like the tea, then you can check that out. So I want to leave on a positive note. What do you got coming up in the week that's fun and geeky, gang?
The coming weeks is fun and geeky. Well, actually tomorrow I've got Tim Lim and maybe one or two other people from Iconic Comics, the makers of Common America and Black Hops. We are going to be talking about Common America, Black Hawk Soul Finder summer crossover that just got released. So that should be fun. And on the 26th, I have Aaron Bennett and Rob Looper. They're launching a new space sci-fi indie comic called Fractured, which is supposed to have an original Alien type of vibe to it.
Wow. Very cool. I love the lived-in sci-fi of 1979's Alien. You know, CRT televisions, industrial plugs and keyboards, the big chunky,
switches and
knobs. I love CRT punk. I think I have actually heard it referred to as CRT punk. So that sounds awesome. Send me a link to that. I'll throw it up on the Discord. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. I was gonna ask you. The new Marvel movie that's coming up, that's hitting very soon, or has just hit recently.
Which one?
Love and Thunder, is it? Thor?
Oh yeah.
Your voice says it all.
The Thors have always been kind of stinkers in the Marvel universe. None of them have really been that good. A lot of people like Ragnarok. I was not that big of a fan.
Ragnarok. Okay, I like the fact that the end battle on the bridge that looks like it should be airbrushed on the side of a van with Immigrant Song playing. That I loved that about Thor Ragnarok, but
it had cool things to it. The thing I don't like is that you have to emasculate and humiliate Thor.
Yeah.
In his own movie, with Valkyrie, and then I don't mind the rivalry with Hulk, but the recent Thor has not been good. Thor and Thor 1 was not bad, and it's a Kenneth Branagh movie, but it wasn't the greatest of the Marvel movies, and then it really went downhill from there. Thor 2 was not great. A lot of people like 3. I don't know. I think there's a lot of way you could do a Thor comedy, even a Taika Waititi one, just without humiliating him.
Yeah.
And this looks like they're going to crank that humiliation up squared.
I hope that needle is starting to move back, but I think they've got a little bit more left, a little bit more bile to vomit out on classic characters like Thor, unfortunately left in their system.
I have to disagree with you. I think it's going to be worse because essentially what they're doing with the MCU is what they've done with Marvel Comics. So Falcon is now Captain America, and I liked Falcon when he was Falcon. Just Captain America. You have Chadwick Boseman is dead. So, where does that leave us with Black Panther? I don't know. I think it's going to be Shuri because in the comic now his sister Shuri is Black Panther. They introduced Kate Barton to replace Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye. Thor is now a lady. It's now Lady Thor. Although who knows what's going to happen with the character of Thor, because I can't see Natalie Portman continuing to play it. And let me see, who else do they have? So they're introducing Riri Williams soon, who will be the stand-in for Iron Man. And I've heard rumors that they're going to bring in, can't remember the character's name, something Cho or Choi, who is the new Hulk, who loves being Hulk. He's having a lot of fun. Oh, and the She-Hulk previews, if you've seen She-Hulk, which speaking of 1990s computer graphics.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, she looks like a rubber bath toy. The CGI, not the actress. Don't at me. Don't cancel me. I'm just saying the CGI for She-Hulk looks like a rubber bath toy.
So far, it's terrible. So I think this humiliation is 100% intentional. I think they are doing it in order to facilitate the replacement. And part of that is, just because you can only have the actors for so long. It's already been over 10 years. So the people who are playing them are getting older. You need to replace them somehow. But the other thing is they've invested all this time and money and gaslighting in telling you that Captain Marvel is great. Miss Marvel, whose series I think came out or is about to come out. Everybody loves Kamala Khan, and all this stuff. And, it's just, I don't see any of these movies going anywhere other than Spider-Man's, which I really enjoyed the last one.
See, I was hoping you were going to come back and tell me, well, Bill, I think you're right. The needle is starting to move, but it's doom and gloom. But regardless of what the future holds, I mean, it's funny. I think almost if we frame this in the context of, the start of the run of Marvel movies back when Iron Man dropped. When was it? That was 2008, 2009?
2008.
Yeah. I mean, 15 years ago. 15 years ago.
And it was fantastic.
Oh, God, it was amazing. I mean, I see Iron Man now, and I just immediately think, oh, that's Robert Downey Jr. Yep. It like Superman will always be Christopher Reeve. Yeah. In my opinion, Christopher Reeve was the gold standard for playing Superman. Michael Keaton, Batman. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man. But to frame this, kind of the beginning of the MCU was like original D&D and advanced D&D, and we're now deep into 4th edition.
Exactly.
But I think there's still a few jewels to be found. I'm probably the only person on, apparently, according to media, I was the only person who pretty much liked Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness.
I was like 50-50. I liked some of it, but the other problem that's going on with the Marvel movies is, when they started that whole first generation, they were individual standalone movies. You didn't have to know anything about Thor if you were going to go see Captain America, you know, and that kind of stuff. But now they're so interconnected, so that, you know, like half the movie is a setup for the next movie. Which
Multiverse was very much I just picked up a random comic at the shop and decided to start with this one. And it's in the middle of like a major plot arc.
Yeah, which to me is kind of a problem. And the other one is a more fundamental problem. I like turning Scarlet Witch evil because she was evil many times in the comic. But the problem is they don't understand that she's evil. And part of the reason it doesn't work that well, like if you actually watch WandaVision, which the middle of it was fantastic. The beginning was, and the end was horrible because she basically ends up enslaving, you know, like 3,000 people to live out her fantasy of being a housewife. And, you know, they're not free to leave. And then there's a general that, you know, is trying to stop her.
He's literally trying to save 5,000 human beings.
But they treat him like he's the enemy, like he's the bad guy. And, you know, even in this, in Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange is like, yeah, I'm not here to talk about Westville. That's cool. Don't worry about it. Like, you know, modern slavery, like on a foot, like even more than just you must do what I say. Like you are physically unable to do anything other than I want you to do. The thing that galled me, I think the start of WandaVision was amazing. I thought the middle was pretty good. I thought the ending was just goddamn awful. Yeah. The thing that like was like the breakthrough TV moment for me, I got to buy them in packs of 5. You know, I go to Costco. Yeah, I need 45. I need a 6-pack of 45-inch 4K TVs, please. Okay, here you go. $999, sir. Yeah, I got a lot of movies to watch. Anyway, was when and I've gone blank. I can't remember the actress's name. Monica Rambeau was her character. Says to her when she's walking away, they'll never know what you sacrificed for them. Dear God. Yes, exactly. She sacrificed imaginary children.
She sacrificed their lives for her, for you. I mean, when the mom from that 70s show, God forgive me, I can't remember that actress's name to save my life, is begging her, please let my children out of their room. They'll be good. So for 6 months, those kids were literally not able to leave the room they were locked in because of Wanda's fantasies. And we had this brave, almost tearful statement by Monica Rambeau at the end. They'll never know what you sacrificed for them.
You know, and so to me, that signals that there's a fundamental problem. Like some of it can just be weak writing. Some of it can be, you know, maybe you have an agenda, certain political agendas to push, but it's not even that. If you cannot find in the superhero genre, if you cannot identify the good guy and the bad guy, the whole thing doesn't work. So, you know, now Multiverse of Madness, it had a lot of great parts. I love Sam Raimi. They didn't let him go Raimi enough, in my opinion.
Exactly. The truly Raimi parts were the Raimiest Raimi that he has Raimied in a long time. Because let me tell you what, that close-up shot when she possesses one of her other selves, I mean, it's like her head is like 80 feet tall, right? When you're in the movie theater. And she turns and breaks the fourth wall just enough to stare at us, the audience. I got goosebumps. I was like, oh, this is Sam Raimi doing it. This is it. And spoiler alert, guys. Big spoiler alert here. When Strange possesses his corpse and is zombie Doctor Strange, I was like, yes, we're getting back to some Evil Dead level stuff here. And I thought that when Raimi was just like, you know what, I'm just going back to what I know. That was the best. That was the best.
I agree. So on a hopeful note, let's say it seems like maybe Sam Raimi's back. Maybe he will hopefully make some other movies. That's my hopeful.
Yeah. And I mean, if he's going to stay with Disney Marvel, which given the performance of Multiverse probably won't happen, but if he does, I'm there for more of that. I'm there for some more zombie Doctor Strange and quasi horror movie Marvel cinematic universe stuff. So we'll have to see. But in the overall, I'm in wait and see mood. I hope you're wrong. I hope you're wrong, and you are very politely eating those words with a nice cold beer.
I hope so too. I love those. I love the Marvel movies up to Endgame.
Up to and including Endgame.
Yeah, Endgame was not a perfect movie, but it was emotionally satisfying. It was an emotionally satisfying way to cap off and end that journey that we had been on for 10, 11 years, with the exception of Captain Marvel. I like to pretend that didn't exist.
What didn't exist? Captain
Marvel.
What about Captain Marvel?
Monica Rambeau. They never should have brought her in.
I'm sorry. What are we? I'm going along with you. It shouldn't exist. I snapped it out of my own memory there. I was just messing with you. Well, I guess we'll find out on the next show whether or not Love and Thunder made me chunder or made me wonder, or was it a blunder? I could do rhymes all night long, but I won't because that'd be a crime. Well, as for me, of course, tomorrow is Sunday. I'm not doing anything. Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Oh, why? What have you heard?
I don't know if you're gonna spend some time with the old man or any relatives or our dads.
No, he's on the other side of the country. But happy Father's Day to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Hopefully your kids get you something better than a necktie.
Hey, I got a little necktie from them once. It's just a little cutout rainbow necktie, and I love it. I absolutely love it. But we will probably go somewhere to dine tomorrow and have a final time. So I'm looking forward to that. Monday, I'll be back streaming. Tuesday, live stream AD&D game over on my YouTube channel. Wednesday, Kyle will be here and we'll stream. Thursday, nobody will be here and I'll stream. And then Friday, stream and Gamma World, and so on into the infinite. That is my geeky events. And then next, I guess a week from today, I will be down at my FLGS Gods and Monsters for Free RPG Day. I'll be running first edition AD&D and Stranger Things. Damn it. First edition AD&D and Tales from the Loop, which is very like Stranger Things. There, I saved it. I think maybe, probably not. But that's all that's on the immediate horizon.
All right. Well, thank you everyone who came and sat with us for just about 2 hours.
Indeed.
And we will see you next month on some channel. I
think next month we're gonna skip over to Dungeon Minister.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
We'll be over on Dungeon Minister's channel next month, and then we'll bring it right back around to my channel and then yours, and just roll it along like that. Thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next time.
All right, see you next time.